The list manager of the Port Adelaide Footy Club. It's a busy time of the year for him, so we appreciate him sparing a couple of minutes for us. Jason, welcome to the show.
Yeah, good afternoon, guys.
You'd be wrapped today. The news came through about Scott Lysette. The West Coast didn't match the offer, and you've now got yourself a ruckman. I guess that's, once again, a very good deal for you guys in terms of what you had to pay to get him.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Scott was clearly our number one target during this period. We've been in pursuit of Scott probably for a couple of years now, and it was timely that he fell out to be a free agent, albeit restricted this year. And we're obviously very excited to have him at the club. And obviously, a former Port Adelaide boy, he was obviously keen to get home and finish his career with our club. One
of the things that it does raise, obviously, you got Charlie Dixon and Paddy Ryder's still got a bit of footy left in him. Billy Frampton and Todd Marshall. How does that? You put all them in the melting pot. How does that look for those guys?
Well, I think Toddy's a different conversation. Toddy's more of a mobile key forward, if you like, albeit a skinny one at this stage. But look, Todd's got real speed and some real agility. Plays a potentially similar role to Westy. So we wouldn't count him as a tall as such. Obviously, Billy's still young and developing, and I think in the game that Bill played late in the year, he showed that he can bark the ball forward. So. But probably thought in the end, Billy is still developing his ruck craft, and obviously Paddy's, getting close to 31 and had some issues with his body this season. Albeit, we think he has a good pre-season. He'll be fit and healthy again. And I think Ken and the coaches like the idea of having two rucks in the side, with both been having the ability to actually play forward as well. So we're excited with what the combination can bring to our group.
Is he your only target player this trade period?
Certainly, in terms of that level, Rowie, he was the number one target. There may be one or two others at a lower level, but Scott was our main target, and obviously we've clearly stated that our position was to really attack the draft, and that's what we'll continue to do.
Okay, Jared Pollock, where's that at with North?
Look, we're having some good discussions with the Kangaroos in relation to that. I'm expecting that to be done sooner rather than later.
Pick 11?
I reckon you'll see that when it comes out, Rowie, but we'd like to think so. With
good.
Obviously, in terms of what Jared, the season he's had this year, and obviously the Kangaroos offer that's been presented to Jared's pretty significant. But we're working through a couple of other things to make that deal happen. But we're confident we'll get there.
It sounds as if the replacement for Jared Pollock is already at the club, as opposed to getting another one of those sort of running style outside players in through the trade.
Yeah, look, we think. And I suppose that's a question really for Kenny and the coaches. But I think to find the genuine outside mid these days who've got real speed and class can be quite difficult. So I think you need to look at other guys who can actually play, who are actually midfielders who can play on the outside. We've got plenty of options. Stephen Motlop, Travis Boak, Brad Ebert, Justin Westhoff. I mean, we've got a lot of players that can play through the midfield. Riley Bonner could potentially come up there and play there. So we think we've got a lot of options, and obviously we're looking forward to the draft as well, and potentially we might get a couple of players that can come through and play similar roles and provide that sort of run for us.
So as we sit here now, Chad or his manager haven't asked to be traded?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you expect he will?
Well, no, we haven't heard anything from Tom or Chad. I think Chris Davies has said on numerous occasions that he is contracted, and at this stage we're expecting Chad to be with us next year. I mean, it's an interesting time in the landscape with free agency, and I think we're looking at Dylan Shield, and there's Lockie Neal, and there's Stephen May. I think the guys that are restricted free agents, in 12 months out, can sometimes want to go and test the market and see what they're worth potentially and what the market value is, and I think we just need to mature more of an industry and understand that, but. Right at the moment, Chad's contracted. He hasn't said anything to us, and we're expecting him to play with us next year.
How often do you have dialogue with Chad, yourself or Chris Davies? Because it appeared about a week or so ago that there was a bit of mixed messaging, and it sounded like that Port and Chad hadn't quite spoken or been on the same page. Do you speak with him often? You said he hasn't indicated to you. When was the last time you spoke?
Oh, Ken Ken talks to all the players regularly. Mm-hmm. So that's Ken's role. That's not my role. My role, obviously, is to liaise with all the managers on a regular basis around all our players, and we'll continue to do that.
Who told who first to test the market with Chad?
Oh, look, that's something for Chad and his manager. Like I said, I think all players have a right to go and test the market. That's their choice. And as I said, I think, as I said, with the free agency, that's a landscape we're in now. Yeah. Players are out there all the time testing to see what they're worth, and I think every player has the right to do that, and I think that's the way it is these days, and I think we've just got to be mature enough and accept that's what it is.
But then you risk losing them. You can say you're untradeable, we're not trading you, you're part of the landscape, etc., etc. I haven't heard that from Port. Do you expect Hawthorn to step up the chase now for Chad, now that they've lost out on Lynch and now Shield?
Oh, I can't answer that, Rowie. You'd have to ask Hawthorn.
Okay, so you haven't had a club in the first 2 days come to you and ask you a question about Chad Wingard?
Oh, there's lots of clubs have asked lots of questions about our players, but in terms of definitively coming and asking about trading for Chad and presenting something to us, no.
Okay, so that sounds like he's going to stay to me.
Is that a statement or a question?
Well, I was waiting for Jason to reply, but I think the pause answers it.
Hey, the draft picks, you're going to accumulate a couple with Jared Pollock at least there. Will you look to trade up to try and get right to the pointy end of the draft? Is that a possibility still?
Oh, look, yeah, we're just working through all those different options now. I mean, the unique part about this year is we've got that extra 3 weeks post the actual official trade period of players and picks. So there'll be a lot of swapping of picks, and then obviously on draft night, the ability to trade picks again. So it's real unknown. We're not going to know till draft night actually where you're going to end up, which is exciting and means we've got a lot of work to do right through till the end of the draft.
Rowie and I have been having a bit of banter. A lot of our listeners have been contributing to the show as well, and we've been talking about the talk about Mitch McGovern is 2 picks in the 20s versus 1 pick in the teens, so say around 13 or 15. Do you use the point system? Do you use it as a term of rating it? Just tell us how you go about sort of measuring the two off against each other.
I think the point system is predominantly used for father, son and NGA through the bidding process. Well, certainly that tool is there for clubs to use in terms of trying to facilitate deals. But obviously then when you're involving players, it becomes very subjective in terms of what you view that player to be worth. So, yeah, it's more of a guide and a tool to help facilitate deals.
Carl Amon, Jack Hompsch, the Jasper Pittard types, any interest there? Do you expect to lose any of those boys?
No, we're not really sure at the moment. So obviously those 3 guys are contracted again. We haven't had significant dialogue with any clubs on those guys. It's obviously still early days. We've still got another 8 days, so we'll just see how that unfolds. Okay,
and Tommy Jonas, he's locked and loaded for next year?
Yeah, he's contracted, which is good news.
And no, that is fantastic. And how good was it Justin Westhoff winning the BNF?
Oh, it's fantastic. Look, it's amazing. I mean, he's just such a durable player, and he's been consistent for a long time now in terms of the footy he's produced. And I think the coaches and the players just love West. He's very humble. He's selfless. He plays any role that Ken and the coaches want. He gets thrown around a lot, and he delivers for us all the time. And I just think it's a great reward for someone who's put in so much time and effort to our footy club. And, everyone was just rapt that he was the winner.
This is broad, Crippsy, on the AFL industry. You're super experienced at this. I've counted 33 contracted players. Not all of them have wanted out with their manager. Some clubs have done that. Bricks has gone to length to say that. Hanbury's one. Shield probably another one. As a club, do you think it sits nicely now, or are you worried that more contracted players are seeking trades? Does the club have enough say and enough veto of power? Where would you like to see it? And where's it going to end?
Oh, look, I have as I stated earlier when we were talking about Chad, I have no problem with players who are contracted testing the market, especially when they're 12 months out. I think that in terms of the power, the shift of power, though, I think that we need to get to a position, though, where the clubs can actually trade players who are contracted to the choice of the club, not always the choice of the player.
Yeah, and do you think we'll get there?
Well, I'd like to think if we're going to continue to go down the path we are with free agency and possibly reducing when a player becomes eligible to be a free agent, I'd like to think that. The other thing I'm supportive of is disclosing the player wages. I think that's where we need to get to if we're going to continue down this path. And for our, in terms of my role and having the flexibility of understanding the market, being able to benchmark players would be really important. Will we ever get there in terms of disclosing wages? I don't think so, but I'd like to think we will one day.
Yeah, well, let's just use this as an example, and it could be anyone, but I'll use Mitch McGovern. He has picked Carlton. The player and his manager have picked Carlton. 2 years running a contract. Carlton have put, let's just say, 2 first-rounders there, okay? Gold Coast might have wanted him left, right and centre, and Gold Coast would say to the Crows, as an example, Cripps, I'm not doing it as a... They might say, well, we'll give you pick 3. You'd like to see the day, and I'm with you on this, where the club can go, well, okay, you're contracted. We're going to ship you to the Gold Coast, or you stay. Because we can get pick 3 at the Gold Coast, but we're not taking 2 second-rounders. I'm with you,
absolutely. If he's in contract, the club and the player wants to leave, the club should have the ability to be able to send the player. Understand if the player's coming out of contract, then the power lies with the player. He has more freedom of choice. But if you contract and you're looking at getting out, the power should lie with the club.
Well said.
One final one before we let you go, and we appreciate your time. Will you entertain the thought of using next year's first-round pick to get access to some of the South Australian talent this year?
Not necessarily. We don't necessarily just focus on the... I mean, there's been a lot of talk about the SA talent, and it's real. There is a lot of talented SA boys in this draft, but, look, we'll use all avenues available, and that's including future picks, just to improve our position or make us better in a better place for this year's draft, or even accumulate more picks for next year. I mean, there's a lot of discussions and strategies and planning that goes in around not just this year's draft, but next year's draft, and we'll be using all avenues possible to make our list better, because ultimately that's what we're trying to do, is bring in talented players that make our list better, and if that means they're South Australian, Victorian or Western Australian, we don't care. We just want talented players.
Great stuff. Thanks so much, Jason, for your time. Very comprehensive, as always.
Thanks, guys.
Always.